It's about that time. Now let me ask you, will you pay more to save the electricity company of Ghana from its current financial crisis? The company is proposing tariff increments and a review of government subsidies as debts owed to independent power producers and others threatens the existence of the company.
Yes, because it's not a cost-reflective tariff because government subsidizes or attempts to subsidize on behalf of the good people of Ghana. But maybe that's a conversation for the future where we have to reconsider and say we have to pay realistic tariffs. So you know what, scrap all of this and then let's apply it, and then maybe every month, per how the forex is moving, we adjust just like the fuel. You understand? If we do that, yes, you can say so that would mean that every 2 weeks or 3 weeks tariff adjustment. But in the long run, these are all things that we have to look at as a nation going forward.
Big question, right? So here's what we'll do. We'll speak to some experts about solutions, and then we'll hear your thoughts as a consumer. Also coming up, what is government doing to end the annual ritual of flooding in Accra and other parts of the country?
To date, 370 desilting projects, representing 96%, have been completed, and 84 drainage channel construction projects, representing 42%, have been completed, while 118 are at various stages of completion.
We're going to hear from the Works and Housing Minister on that issue, as well as a few experts to weigh in. Also today, are you taking any medication for an ailment or a condition? Chances are you have taken counterfeit medicine already. About 80% of imported drugs are fake. And that is the information coming from the African Continental Free Trade Area Business Summit, which is happening in Cape Town, South Africa, as we speak. Also, Africa's largest single vaccine manufacturing plant begins production today, right here in Accra. We'll tell you all about that and the impact that is going to have on our country. My goodness, we've got quite an afternoon for you. Get strapped in. We're getting started. My name is Kojo Yankson. It's a pleasure to bring you The Pulse. All right, let's get started. Now, this one concerns us all. Electricity. The company that supplies it to our homes, ECG, is currently facing serious difficulties that can make it impossible for it to supply you in the near future. That's because they are indebted to those they source the power from. That's the independent power producers. Now, in recent weeks, the company has embarked on a massive revenue drive to retrieve debts owed by its customers, most of them state agencies and big business. But the company is also not efficient enough, by its own admission, losing a big part of what it's supposed to bring to our homes. And that's the big issue on The Pulse today. We're going to hear from ECG boss, Mr. Samuel Dubik Mahama. We'll also hear from the Energy Think Tank Institute of Energy Policy on the way out of this problem. Plus, your views as well. Let me give you the number right now. Call us 03. We'll put the number on the screen as soon as the lines are open. Don't you worry about that. Right now, though, we can hear from ECG boss, Mr. Samuel Dubik Mahama, who has been speaking to my colleague Samuel Kojo Brace.
We can say we've collected in excess of 2 billion, and we know that this is the final week. This final week, we are pushing very hard. Our intention is to say that, look, we've had a month long. We've been patient for 3 weeks now. This is the last week. There are no longer any more excuses. It's okay. Just pay up so that the company can be made whole. Our intention is to do our best to make sure that we retrieve enough of the revenue so we can build a better company. Our intention is to make sure that we do it right for there to be enough meters for all our customers to benefit from it. So that's the plan that we are on now.
You set out to retrieve some 5.7 billion cedis. You say you are somewhere over 2 billion. You'll be wrapping up this weekend, right? What confidence do you have that you'll be able to meet that 5 billion debt that you were chasing?
So, in truth, this is not it's not an exercise that you think you'd be able to finish. No, you can't. But within this short period, we intend to recover enough of it, and then now launch a proper and systematic process to continuously close that gap as quickly as possible. There's a possibility that we might even start selling the debt to private institutions to go and collect. It's something that we are thinking about considering, because we are getting to the point where we need all the help that we could get. So if it means discounting it to the necessary company and then getting what we need, yes, why not? So it's something on the table worth considering. So our plan is we'll get as much as we can, and after that we'll sit down, do an assessment of ourselves, and then plan what we are going to do next. Yeah.
But we also understand that the debt that people owe you is lesser than what you owe the IPPs and or the people who help you out in your operations. How do you explain that, and how are you going to deal with that?
So that's a great point. Now, if you are not collecting enough, then what's your story? If it's even less in city-wise, collect enough so you can shift the burden onto somebody else's doorstep. You understand? See, let's say, for example, if the cedi to the dollar was 1:1 and we're collecting 100 million, we are apples to apples in terms, but you don't have that in the perfect world that you are in now. So what are you going to do about it? That just collect enough, make sure your collections number and the rate is high enough, and then now you can ask to be given a seat in the room to discuss the way forward on the differences. So as for that one, I'll say when we get to that bridge with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Energy, we'll definitely cross it. But for now, we have to do what we have to do on our side as a company. And we also entreat the individuals and companies that purchase our product to know that we are at a point where you have to pay for what you have consumed. That's the whole conversation.
But how does the lay mind understand this gap? The gap between what you owe and how much people owe you?
So the gap is clear, because what we owe is in dollars and what we collect in cedis. You understand? So that's a whole tariff conversation about how to close the gap as quickly as possible. Maybe PURC has to start looking at leaving maybe some 2 or 3 or 4 pesos in there for us to close the gap on the cedi to dollar ratio, or PURC has to adjust the forex bandwidth. It's all a conversation to be had. But at the end of the day, as a company, I choose to always drop the problem at the doorstep of ECG. If you're supposed to collect 100 and you collect the entire 100 and it's not enough, then you can ask for help. But currently you're supposed to collect 100 and you are not collecting the 100. So how do you even say that it's not enough? You understand? So it's a moral obligation thing for the company ECG to do its best to collect enough, and so it can now provoke the conversation of the gap that is left. Yes.
So is it that we're not paying realistic tariffs and that's why there's that gap?
By and large, yes, because it's not a cost-reflective tariff, because government subsidizes or attempts to subsidize on behalf of the good people of Ghana. But maybe that's a conversation for the future where we have to reconsider and say we have to pay realistic tariffs. So you know what, scrap all of this and then let's apply it, and then maybe every month, per how the forex is moving, we adjust just like the fuel. You understand? If we do that, yes, you can say we are. So that would mean that every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, tariff adjustment. But in the long run, these are all things that we have to look at as a nation going forward.
So today, the Accra Digital Center was cut off because of the debts they owe. After Friday, if these institutions are not able to pay, what happens?
So that's another conversation to be had, but for now, I'd rather not think beyond Friday, but I'll think from now to Friday, because I'm expecting everybody to do what is right. Whether you have to find the money, whether you have to borrow, please go ahead, do that, and let's close the gap as quickly as possible. After that, we can revisit the conversations on a case-by-case basis.
When we heard the story earlier, Airtel Tigo called that they didn't owe, they had paid, but it was a mishap on the part of ECG. How do you explain that?
You see, at every given point in time, everybody finds it convenient to lay the problem at someone else's doorstep. Did you ask them when they paid? You understand? So you can't just say when it happened, we came to check and we've paid already. When did you pay? You understand? I don't like bantering with people, or I don't want to start a problem where it will look like you're actually, in all my deliberations, I do my best not to even mention company names, because it's not necessary. You understand? Because if they want to go on that tangent, my other question will be, why do you even have to owe in the first place? You understand? It's a line item on your budget. So let's do our best to shy away from name calling and name mentioning. At the right time, if we have to do name and shame, we will do the name and shame. But for now, let's see it as a holistic approach. Let's do our best and let's push forward and make sure that we close the gap as quickly as possible.
So what should people expect after Friday?
What people should expect after Friday is that the next phase will be targeting mostly the illegal connections and making sure that all of those things are tackled and tackled well. We should note that an illegal collection is you stealing, because it's not that you have a bucket somewhere and you're collecting the electricity into it. After you've bypassed that, when I come for it, you can take the bucket and give it to me that here's your electricity. But rather, you've stolen. And if you've stolen, you have to be charged with stealing. So everybody should consider this a head start to correct all what they've done, because when we are coming with the full might of the law, even with the necessary protection for us to make sure that that gap is closed as quickly as possible. Now then, with our standing debt, as I said earlier, conversations are far advanced to find a way to, if we have to sell the debt to generate revenue, we'll definitely sell the debt to generate revenue. We have to be innovative and find a way to see how to get private sector to assist us to close this gap as quickly as possible.
Right, Samuel Dubik Mahama speaking to Samuel Kojo Yankson. Now, by the admission of ECG themselves, part of the problem comes from their inability to properly police the use of electricity. Here is their solution to that particular problem. Well, first of all, that's the size of the problem. 28% of losses, which is about 2.8 billion Ghana cedis every single year. Half of ECG's customers are stealing power or not paying the right amount for power. 10% of the losses are due to power theft, which is pretty much about 1 billion Ghana cedis of losses. Now, 3 out of 5 prepaid and postpaid meters are either not paying the right amount or actually stealing power. 20,000 illegal meters have been found in the Accra East area alone so far. That's a very, very big problem. So let's talk about it, okay? We can hear from you when you call us and share your views in a bit. But right now, we've been joined by research and policy analyst at the Institute of Energy Security, Mr. Adam Yakubu, who joins us by Zoom. Mr. Yakubu, it's a pleasure. Good afternoon.
To your listeners.
Wonderful. So, I mean, let's start from what the ECG managing director is saying. Look, people are not honest. They are either not paying the right amount or not paying at all. They say they are waiting for a bill before they pay. In other parts of the world, people pay their bill every month. Whether they've received an invoice or not, they pay the amount they pay the last month because it's an obligation. They've budgeted for it. How much of this problem is down to people's attitudes, and how much is it down to ECG's inefficiencies?
Yes. So when we look at the problem, we need to put it.
I think you might have muted your microphone there. If you can unmute it so we can hear you.
Yes. Can you hear?
Yes, perfect. Please go ahead. Okay.
Can you hear me, Kojo?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So we need to put the problem in proper perspective. That is the issue of losses. It is put into 2 categories, that is technical and non-technical. The technical aspects oftentimes are things that have to do with the generation of the electricity. In the process of distribution, definitely some amount of the electricity would be gone. So that it is allowable to some percentage, about between 4 and 18%, that is allowed. But to have ECG doing 28%, that is worrying, in a sense that it means that something is wrong somewhere, both on the part of the ECG's technical side and on the part of payment of whatever is due the institution. And the managing director admitted to this clearly. So who is to blame? We have to blame both the citizens and the management of ECG. I recall in the last interview, the managing director did indicate that they don't even have the requisite number of personnel to man these meters across the country. So clearly that is an admission that they are understaffed. So if you are understaffed, I would expect that there should be an innovative way to be able to police the meters. And on the part of we citizens, it is about time that the ECG undertakes a sensitization drive to me to be able to, as it were, educate people to understand that, look, the electricity you are using, it is cost. It is some money that goes into bringing it. So if you don't pay, it will get to a point where we will not be able to serve you the electricity. It's just like when you go to a restaurant to eat. I'm not sure you eat beyond what is in your pocket. You eat according to what you have in your pocket. So when you go beyond your bill, then I'm sure you will be forced to wash the dishes or you'll be marched to the nearest police station. So this particular thing, a lot of users of electricity do not still appreciate the fact that the electricity they consume is supposed to be paid for. And so you have people, I didn't get my bill, so I won't pay. What if your lights were out? I'm sure you would call a technician. I'm sure you would march to the nearest ECG office or the nearest Gridco or Netco office to complain. So it is the same way that you owe some responsibility as a user of the electricity to be able to what? To help the ECG, because it's a human institution. They can't do it all by themselves. So we, the citizens, have a responsibility to play, but management of ECG have to also look at their inefficiencies in a sense that we can't keep paying for the inefficiencies. Something must be done. The whip must be cracked. If within a month, a bill of about 5 billion has been reduced by half, it should tell you that the loss and revenue department, something was not being done until the managing director took the lead. So you see where we all have a fault or we all have a role to play. This is what I have to say for now.
Thank you, Mr. Yakubu. Now, let me ask you this. Mr. Dubik Mahama makes an interesting suggestion that perhaps government should not subsidize the tariffs any longer, deregulate the sector and let people pay competitive prices for the electricity, because the independent power producers, the IPPs, are charging in dollars. They are charging competitive prices for what ECG takes from them. So the suggestion was, just like how the price of fuel goes up and down based on global influences,
dynamic.
Perhaps we should let the tariffs for electricity do the same thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so clearly that is to call in for efficiency in the sector. We are just not looking at it from the part of the government subsidy. Obviously, when we deregulate the sector, we are likely to get efficiency. We have even called for other independent power distribution companies to come in to be able to make the sector competitive. You know, in Ghana, we have two distribution companies that you are either within the NETCO zone or you are within the ECG zone.
Yeah.
These two companies, except for the Tema Enclave, where we have another distribution company, but these clearly are the two main distribution companies. I'm sure if we are introducing deregulation, it means that we are calling in efficiency, we are calling in private hands to also come in into the distribution. And I'm sure if private hands come in, the private businessman wouldn't wait for you to say that I didn't see my bill, so I won't pay. When you don't pay, the bill is going to go up. It's just like when you go to Europe and some other countries. When you don't pay your bills, I'm not sure you would have light in your house. The bills will go up automatically. And so what even baffles is, how can one be operating a prepaid meter and still be owing ECG? A meter that is prepaid. When you don't subscribe, when you don't buy data on your phone, I'm not sure you can access the internet. So how are people able to do this? Some scrupulous or unscrupulous individuals within the energy sector help people get around these things. And until we all come together and fight it, the ECG will keep doing it every year in, year out. This has become an annual ritual. Markets, after Friday, when the deadline is closed, you won't hear this thing until next year. The managing director comes again, they are doing revenue mobilization. I think this should be something that should be done monthly, so that monthly they go down. Institutions have these as line items on their budget. I don't get why you have an item on your budget, electricity, for a whole year you didn't pay. The next year, so where has the money been going to as an institution? And auditors go into these institutions and they audit. They come out with audit reports. We don't see anything. So it is just not ECG not paying, but even state-owned institutions owe the ECG, and that is worrying. So if private hands, like the managing director has called for deregulation does not just mean government shouldn't subsidize. He should know that when we say deregulation, definitely he's calling in competition to his sector, and there we'll be able to measure who is doing well and who is not doing well.
Yeah. All right, listen, thanks for that. Thanks for your insights. I'll tell you what I'd like to do right now. I'd love to bring in you, the viewer. I would love to hear from you. Tell us what you think should be the solution. Here's the situation. Prepaid and postpaid meters are pretty much split evenly down the middle in terms of their number across the country, okay? So a very close number of people have postpaid meters to those who have prepaid meters. Now, with the postpaid meters, about half of them are not paying their bills, which means the tariff that we are paying on a prepaid meter keeps going up just to cover the cost of providing electricity for everybody. So the question is this: what is the solution? Should we pay more, a higher tariff, or should those who are not paying for their electricity pay? And how do we make them pay? Should it be somebody's job to chase them, or should they make the payments? I'd love to hear your views. 0302 211 691. I'll say that again, 0302 211 691. Give us a call. All right. Tete is in Nima. Hi, Tete. Good morning. Good afternoon. Forgive me. How are you, Tete? Do we have Tete on the line? We've lost Tete. All right, but you can call us. The number is right there on the screen. Give us a call. We'd love to hear your view on this. What is the way forward? ECG certainly will struggle if we don't pay our bills. But the question is, should we increase the tariff so that those who are paying pay more? Or should those who are not paying be faced with some penal measures that will make them pay? Your view is the one that matters. So give us a call. Okay, Yao is on the line. Hello, Yao. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from the Western North region.
Fantastic. Okay, talk to us, Yao. What are your thoughts on the way forward?
Okay, I heard you talking about those using postpaid not paying, and then those using the prepaid, they have to pay more to cover up the cost of those using the postpaid. And I totally disagree with you. I am not from Western North here. I came to the Western North here to work. But sometimes I see some anomalies in the work of the ECG over here that I think that they have to beef up their operation. The reason I'm saying that, what I'm saying right now, I have paid a bill for almost about 5 months, and then it has not taken effect on their bill at the ECG office. So when the bill comes, so they have not updated me to the bill that I paid long time ago. So in this case, I will not pay, because I have paid a bill maybe of about 1,000 cedis, which is still not showing on my monthly postpaid receipt that I have paid this. Then what does it mean I should pay more? Because if I'm paying and then it is not taking effect on your receipt that I have paid, and you are still bringing me a monthly bill, then there is something wrong with it. And then secondly, there are some meters which are not working over here, but still they do estimated readings and they bring bills, which I don't even understand, because the meters are not working and they can bring a bill of about 400 cedis every month. Then I'm not going to pay, because let's say I'm staying here alone over here, and then I'm paying for almost about 400 cedis monthly, whereby my meter is not reading, and I've reported to you, the ECG boss, and you are still not coming to change the meters. What shows that if you bring the bills, I'm going to pay? I will not pay. So I need to set the record straight here that some of the ECG workers need to up their doing, because sometimes it is not the customers, it is the workers or the bosses up there who are doing the mistake. And then because of their mistakes, we are not going to pay the bill. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for calling. You can call us too. 030-2211-691. We're talking about ECG, the way forward, how to ensure that the lights stay on. Because as things stand right now, the company is, it's in a very precarious situation. They owe the independent power producers, and they need to get the money from us in order to pay their bills. All right, so call us 030-2211-691. How do we fix this long-standing problem of ECG failing to pay its bills. Joseph is here in Accra. Hi, Joseph. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead, Joseph. We can hear you.
I think we have to blame ECG totally for whatever they are going through. Right? You go to the news site, for instance. They have these meters shared to various houses, which has been installed for months, years, with the promise that after the installation, ECG people will come around to register the meters. You go to places like Kaswa, Ajien Kotoku, Amasama area, and then everybody is using the meter free for now. Nobody is paying it. Not that they don't want to pay. ECG is not doing what is expected of them. Right? If the meter hasn't been registered, it is not in your system. How do I pay? I can't pay. I don't know who to pay for. And then secondly, the issue with meter. ECG already is charging for meter charges on every time you buy credit on monthly basis. Why can't they supply every house with meter or every single room or chamber hall with meter? So that at least these single meter charges that they are charging on every meter, when they make the meter affordable to everybody, everybody will go in for meter and then pay meter charges at least for everybody. But this is the case, the meters are there, they are not bringing it. How can I pay 3,050 for a meter? So if you don't have 3,000 to pay for a meter and somebody, you get free, you should be able to go in for this illegal thing. They themselves, and they are not employing more people to do what is expected of them. So blame them, they have to sit up. We shouldn't blame them, and especially when they get illegal things, the people working in the office just take money. They don't do what they have to do. They just take money and release the people. So who is causing the downfall of ECG? It is themselves, the workers there. The directors are there. They need to have a do whatever you do. If you go to the office, they have to come, attend to you immediately. But it's like you go there, you go and come, you go there, go and come. When you get there, you do need that. So they should blame themselves.
So thanks for sharing your views all the way from the Western North region. You can do the same, 030-2211-691. What's the way forward? How do we solve the problem of ECG? Which, of course, if they are unable to pay their bills to IPPs, the lights might go off. Nobody wants to go back to that time. So what do? Do we pay more? How do we ensure that those who are not paying, pay? What are the issues that we need to resolve here? Andrew is on the line. Andrew, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Sintes Road.
Okay, great. Let's hear from you, Andrew.
Yeah. My problem is how ECG have been bringing in more contractors to work for them to know their secrets and where their installations, big installations and other things are. And later on, you will let these people out. Why not take them permanently so that they will be working for you for good? But you let them know all your secrets, all where your machines are. And these people, if you let them go, they will go hungry. And by all means, they know the tricks. So I will plead with you that the boys that you've been bringing in, let them work with you. Now you are telling us that you don't have enough workers. And by installation and taking these contractors to do the installations for you, you let them go. And if I know your secret, I can teach you. So we plead with you that let these boys be a permanent workers for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. That was a call out from Spintex Road. If we have others, we'd love to hear from you. 030-2211-691. We're talking about ECG. This one affects all of us. We all use electricity. Kojo is on the line from Takrady. Kojo, it's good to have you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please go ahead. We're listening.
Afternoon.
Yes, Kojo, good afternoon. Please
I
go
think
ahead.
we should blame all these problems on ECD. Do you know why? Right now, my meter has gotten spoiled. It is no more reading. I use the postpaid, and I've reported to them several times. Now, when they come, they just give me an estimated bill, whereby I'm paying almost about 400 cedis. I'm working in Western region because of work. I'm a public servant. My family are in a different region. In the different region where I'm coming from, I use so many equipment that I pay almost about 70 cedis. That is for the postpaid. Right now, my family are in a different region. I'm here alone working here. And then you give me a bill of 400 cedis, whereby the meter 2 is not working, and you give me an estimated bill of 400 cedis. You think I'll pay? I'm not going to pay, because I've come to your office several times to report to you that the meters are not working, that you just need to come and change it. And you're not coming to change it and give me a bill of one person alone, 400 cedis, whereby most of the time at work, from work to house to work, I don't use any big equipment over here. So do you think I'll pay? No, I will not pay. So do you see where the problem is coming from? So I think the ECG should be up and doing in their work. Sometimes when the customers come to the office and give them a complaint, they should be up and doing and follow the complaints. Well, instead of that, they will be sitting at the offices, and then they will be doing what they want to do. I will not pay. And secondly, too, when you pay the bills, maybe you can pay about 1,000 cedis or 500 cedis. It will take about 5 months for the 1,000 cedis that you paid at the ECG to reflect on your monthly bill, which comes. When you ask them, they told me they will tell you it is a network problem. So in this case, do you think that I paid 1,000, which is not reflecting on my receipt? You think next time I will pay? No, I will not pay, because I will wait for the 1,000 to reflect before I will pay again. So I think usually should check how they work. If not, that they always continue to make losses, which it will affect we the Ghanaians. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you who have called. Now, it's interesting because almost every call we've had is raising issues of faulty meters or a lack of meter. They've been waiting for a long time for a meter to be fixed, or a meter that is not reading. Interestingly, we did speak to Mr. Dubik Mahama this morning on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM, and he dealt with this issue. Let's hear what he said.
This thing is a big moral responsibility and values fight. We need to stop. We need to stop. Because one of the newspapers tried to do a calculation, but he's not far off. We lose over 1 billion Ghana cedis in illegal connections. Why?
So
And actually, I'm saying it's close because it's more.
You lose more than 1 billion.
I believe strongly we
By
lose
your
more.
calculations, how much do you lose?
For every percentage lost, for the last calculation I did, is about 100 million cedis.
And you lose what percentage now?
Right now, ECG's losses are at about 28%.
So that's 2.8 billion.
Exactly.
Okay. So you lose.
The international standard is around almost just, should be around maybe about 7 or 8%.
So you're expected to lose about 700-800 million?
Yes.
And you lose an additional 2 billion.
Exactly. So we are sitting on something that the conversation cannot just be, maybe it should be a national discourse thing, because it's getting to the point where the responsibility of the average Ghanaian has a problem. The responsibility has a problem, because nobody seems to realize that this is what makes you a citizen, or this is what actually allows you to have the moral. Look, the same person who has the illegal connection, who has his air conditioning on 24 hours, is the same person who shout, "Oh, easy," when the lights go off.
Okay, let's wrap things up with our guest who is on Zoom. You've heard what people are saying, raising salient issues, Mr. Yakubu, of difficulties in using their meters, so their meter is not reading. ECG sends them an estimated bill. They don't think the bill is correct, so they don't pay. What would you say to customers who take up that attitude?
Yes, so yes, like we are all saying, we owe the ECG some civic responsibility to help them mobilize these monies. But however, they owe it to themselves some organizational strategies. Like, for instance, it shouldn't take you forever to ask for a meter. Yes, I need the electricity, so if I'm not getting a meter, you are obviously giving me a leeway or an excuse to be able to go and do whatever I will do on the system. And in an era where government is promoting so much digitalization, I still don't agree with the MD's assertion of we cannot track our monies, we cannot track our meters. There should be some technological advancements in the sector. Ghana is not living in isolation. How is it done in the West? We can learn from best practice. Mr. MD, yes, we commend your effort, but we think that you can do more. In terms of postpaid meters, in this era, I don't think we still need those meters in this 21st century. You don't even have the people to man them. Why do you keep using it? So you see, some of the challenges are ECG own created. So
well, he did say
difficult.
He did say to us this morning that the plan is to replace all of the postpaid meters with prepaid, but they have to buy these meters. They didn't have the money because people were owing them and not paying, so they couldn't buy. So for a year, he said, for one whole year, they had not ordered a single meter ECG.
Yes, so let's assume that from the monies they've collected and they'll collect to the end of by Friday, we hope that that money would go into replacing all these postpaid meters onto the prepaid system. So with the prepaid system, even sitting behind a computer, you should be able to tell how much has been paid at the end of the month, because you know the degrees of payment because they come in through the electronic payment system. And mind you, when they are doing the revenue mobilization, what they eliminated is cash collection. Human beings are very funny. These officers could go and take their monies, and at the end of the day, what is reported in the office is not what was collected at the gate. And so,
well, they eliminated that. It was a cashless exercise.
Cashless system. So the money comes into the system, unless, of course, a staff is willing to take a risk of paying monies into your name and coming to pay it into which is something no staff would want to take that risk. So that's the technology we are talking about. The ECG in this 21st century, deregulation, technology, and organizational efficiencies are some of the things they will need. And on the part of we citizens, we owe it the civic responsibility to pay our tariffs.
Mr. Yakubu, we can't thank you enough. We appreciate your time with us. And that is Mr. Adam Yakubu of the IES. All right, let's do a few other stories now. The rains are setting in soon. And as we've experienced almost every single year here in Accra, Kumasi, and some other parts of the country, floods are likely to happen. But how do we ensure that it's not going to cause destruction to property and even cost the lives of people?
Resilient communities and reducing incidents of flooding in our country. The government embarked on the 2018 and 2020 National Flood Control Programs. The objective has been to invest in projects that mitigate flood risk while increasing the resilience of our vulnerable communities. From 2018 to date, the government has committed approximately 450 million to the program, and that is the single most significant investment from Government of Ghana funding sources to tackling flooding in our country. Under the National Flood Control Program, 384 desilting projects and 202 drainage channel construction projects were initiated. To date, 370 desilting projects, representing 96%, have been completed, and 84 drainage channel construction projects, representing 42%, have been completed, while 118 are at various stages of completion. Ahead of this rainy season, the certain works have been undertaken in selected flood hotspots such as Kasua, Millennium City, Adenta Sakora, Insachi, Ablekuma, Dowenya, and Domi Railway Crossing, New Legon, Santo, Adenta, Sango, and Naplaja drains. The ministry will continue to engage the Ministry of Finance to raise the necessary funds to enhance the flood resilience of our communities.
Now, the minister also recounted several challenges currently hindering the ministry's efforts, especially the encroachment of wetlands by property developers. We'll learn more about that shortly. But right now, I think we can go across to Zoom and speak to a NADMO representative joining us. George AEC, good afternoon to you, sir. It's that time of year again. Tell us, what exactly is the plan of our disaster management organization for what has now become inevitable, flooding? If you can hear me, Mr. Isik, if you could unmute your microphone for us.
I just unmuted it, yes.
Thank you, fantastic. It's good to speak to you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be on JoyNews. Yes, as you rightly said, it's that time of the year and flooding because of the structural nature of Accra and its plains and then other major cities. It's become somehow inevitable. And some of the issues chronicled by the minister and yourself, people building on waterway, Ramsey site and all that, it becomes something difficult to manage the flooding situation. And the nature of our drains is also another contributing factor. Having said that, NADMO, because we've not dramatically changed the structure or the engineering of the city, we need to do management and help those who are living in flood-prone areas to adapt to the situation. In the adaptation processes is where we've come out with places we call our safe havens, where we conscientize the people, and then once we've identified some of these safe havens, people can then move there for safety. When the rains are over, they can get back to their places. Because the alternative is to move all of them from where they are, because we've identified they are not in places that are good for human to be there because of the danger they are exposed to. And so and that is capital intensive, and government must do that. Once that has not been on the table yet, we need to do the alternative of getting them to adapt to the situation.
Right. Okay. Now, look, let's talk about the resource situation, because whatever work NADMO does is based on resources, and we know what happens when there is a disaster. There is always a lag, a wait between the moment of the disaster and the moment when NADMO is mobilized because of resource constraints. Are we taking a different approach this year? Are we trying to do some things in advance so that if we're hit by the inevitable, NADMO's response can be quicker?
Our response quicker, we try to do pre-positioning. We try to stock our warehouses. But the truth of the matter is your ability to actually manage the situation of the victims depends on the number of people that have been affected directly at any time T. And so if the number vis-a-vis what we have in our warehouses is so overwhelming, then you see the exposure of NADMO, the challenges and the difficulties will be brought to bear. But if the numbers are manageable compared to what we have in our warehouses, we are able to respond appropriately. And you're right, sometimes, the people get a bit frustrated because there's the situation, NADMO, we've gone there, we've collated data, but what to support them to get them out of the situation and then keep body and soul together is not coming. And so they get a bit frustrated. Yes, so that is the situation. But going forward, we've been assured by the Finance Ministry that in case we have such overwhelming situations, they will be ready on an emergency basis to step in to support us.
As with everything, prevention is cheaper than response. So what is NADMO's prevention strategy as we are heading into this season?
Yeah, that's what I said. One, we try to partner, and I'm happy the minister himself is talking about steps that the Ministry of Works and Housing is taking to dredge, drain, and desilt major drains in the city. That is one sure way to ensure that there's free flow of water in our drains. And two, we also work in partnership with the assemblies to also do same. And then the sensitization of people in identified places that are waterways so that they will be aware of the danger they're exposed to and wouldn't do anything that will put them in harm's way or make them lose their lives or put them in danger. So that sensitization within communities is another way of looking at the matter or the situations.
Now we notice something from 1 year to the next. Apart from the notorious areas, we find that different areas join the identified flood-prone areas. Every year, new areas join. If you know what I mean, new areas get flooded. Is NADMO tracking any kind of trend, any progression geographically? Are we seeing a certain move? Are we able to predict what the new flooding areas might be this coming season?
What you're saying is very right. It's very true.
Right, it would seem we have some difficulty with our connection to Mr. Isi there. He is the communications director of NADMO. He's talking us through preparations of the disaster management organization for the coming rainy season, which is always characterized by flooding in metropolitan areas, Accra, Kumasi, and other parts of the country. We've already learned about their plans to sensitize members of flood-prone communities to ensure they're a bit safer. I think we've reconnected with Mr. AC now. Can you hear me? Do we have Mr. AC back? Okay, we're working to fine-tune that connection so that we can hear his views on this matter. Very important conversation, which we will come back to if we get the opportunity to fix that connection. But you know what? It's time for a cup of tea. We'll be back right after this with a lot more on The Pulse. Welcome back. Now, President Akufo-Addo says Ghana is on the path to become vaccine self-sufficient after breaking grounds for the construction of a factory with the capacity to produce 600 million vaccines of different types every year. This initiative is supported by the European Union, who have given a grant of 5 million euros. According to the president, the factory will ensure that Ghana does not become a pawn of vaccine nationalism, as was witnessed during the height of COVID-19.
A private sector-led consortium of Ghanaian pharmaceutical companies, which will help our nation realize the dream of becoming self-sufficient in the production and manufacture of vaccines. Ladies and gentlemen, it all started on 28th February 2021 in Update 24, of what has come to be known as the Fellow Ghanaian series of addresses to the nation at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when I declared to the Ghanaian people my determination to see to the manufacture of vaccines here in Ghana. The vaccine nationalism that was played out by the developed world with the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines meant that we had to take urgent, critical steps towards making sure that never again would we be victims or pawns of the international vaccine order. It was imperative that we took our destiny into our own hands. Ghana embraced fully the lessons it taught us, as well as the direction to which it is pointing us. In particular, for us, it has given us a good sense of how important it is to strengthen our unity and solidarity with our fellow African countries, and has provided us with the motivation, if any was needed, to be self-reliant. Whilst appreciating the COVAX, AU, and AVAT in COVID-19 vaccine supply initiatives, we're venturing into vaccine development and manufacturing with our sister African countries of Rwanda and Senegal. And together, we're determined to become vaccine manufacturing hubs in sub-Saharan Africa. We want to achieve self-sufficiency in vaccine production to meet future national, regional, and continental needs for health security. We shall not then in the future be at the mercy of foreign vaccine nationalism and geopolitics.
All right, now let's stay in the pharmaceutical space. The chief executive officer of Aspen, Africa's largest pharmaceutical company, is asking the government of Ghana to take immediate steps to check the influx of counterfeit pharmaceutical products into the country. Now, the business executive, who doubles as chairperson of BRICS Business Council in South Africa, says he's concerned about the heightened levels of importation of substandard medication and its devastating implications for public health. Now, Dr. Stavros Nikolaou says that the situation can be checked if African countries halt the importation of medication and instead manufacture medication on the continent to meet specific needs. He was speaking in an exclusive interview with Blaise Soga on the sidelines of the African Continental Free Trade Area Business Summit in Cape Town, South Africa, which we will bring to you later. But let's go to South Africa right now, where, of course, Blaise Soga has been for a few days now in Cape Town. We are going to speak to Blaise. Also, we're joined by Louis Yao Afful. He's the Group Executive Director of African Continental Free Trade Policy Network in Ghana. Dr. Gonse Motloatse, I hope I've said your name right, forgive me if I haven't, is the CEO of YNG Healthcare Solutions. He joins us too. We also have Mr. McGill, in fact, Mr. Patrick McGill, Patrick McGee. He's the Managing Director of Africa Original, which is in South Africa. Mr. McGee, Mr. Motloatse, and all of you joining us on Zoom, thank you very much for your time and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We also have Blaise Soga, our very own Blaise, who is in South Africa to cover the events of this conference. Blaise, it is good to have you. We'll hear from you and how the event is going in a minute, but let's come to this issue of counterfeit drugs. Mr. McGee, this is scary. Exactly how are we allowing such a number of potentially dangerous drugs into the continent? Where are they coming from and why are they getting in so easily?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on this show. And we just had a very interesting conversation with the people in the industry around counterfeits, drugs mainly. And so just to give a quick bit of background, when we look at it, in the world, counterfeit, not only drugs, but counterfeit products, the estimates say that it represents between 1 trillion to 4.5 trillion dollars, which is basically the GDP of Germany or Japan. And it's actually larger than the GDP of Africa, and that's globally. We estimate that about a quarter of that happens on the continent because, unfortunately, our porous borders mean that a lot of these goods can come in to our countries, and it is, as you were mentioning, having devastating effects. Not only we have WHO numbers that prove that every year 120,000 people die of fake malaria pills, and that's every year, and that is only what has been reported to the WHO. So you can just even imagine the amount of people that are not even reporting that. When you ask me, how are we letting this happen? When we know that it's representing $4.3 trillion, we always say there's actually 4.3 trillion reasons for people to be importing and distributing these fake or substandard goods. It is as well estimated that in some countries, mainly in West Africa, up to 70% of medicine is fake. And the problem when you have that is that there is no active substance in the medicine. And that's why people might be taking some drugs to heal cancers, to heal malaria, but they're not feeling any effect. And it has very much, with drugs, it has fatal consequences. And so just to quickly mention that we have signed a contract with the AFCFTA to deploy our technology. And our technology, which is part of the original, is a platform that will give access to consumers. We give them access to make better, safer choices when they're consuming products.
Now, Dr. Mutluatse, as the companies that are providing healthcare solutions here in Africa, how are you leveraging technology to fill in the gap that regulation might be leaving open? How are you able to use the technology that already exists? Because we're aware that there are so many ways to check counterfeit drugs. How are you using that to protect your customers? Do we have Dr. Mutluatse on the line? Do we have him? Okay. Well, let me bring in Mr. Affle here. Look, it's obvious that there is some regulatory lapse. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible for such drugs to come in, bearing in mind the amount of technology we have to spot them. So how can the African Continental Free Trade arrangements be part of the solution to protect consumers on the continent?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you, your viewers and colleagues. And thank you also, Blessing. The immediate challenge is that the African Continental Free Trade, if you take the protocol of services, there are 12 priority areas that are supposed to have been negotiated by this time. One key one is healthcare, but that has not been done yet, which is very, very serious. If you take the 12 priority sectors that have been discussed, if you take ICT, tourism, transport, we have not yet tackled healthcare and education. And I was thinking that I even made mention to the Secretary General, His Excellency, when I visited him, that look, if we have not been taught by COVID, then we are going to make the same mistakes. COVID has taught us that we should always be on our guard. So why are we keeping the healthcare, the priority sector, which is so key, not yet negotiated? Because within that priority sector, you're going to have vaccines, you're going to have a whole lot of, for example, the phytosanitary, that was also part of the convention, the AU. All these processes are going to come to play, and then we are going to move to the next stage of which countries are going to base on national offer and acceptance, or national interest and acceptance, because under services, it's not going to play like the way most play. Services are based upon countries collaborating. So therefore, you're going to know, okay, country Kenya is interested in collaborating with Ghana when it comes to healthcare in this area. That is how the services play. Until that, we are not going to be able to move any further because it has not yet been negotiated by the parties. It is still in the process. So by the end of this year, that should be out of the way. When that is done, then of course, if these 12 prices are now negotiated, then parties will stick to the agreement. And thank God we have the African CDC. All these institutions are more or less supporting the operationalization of the agreement. So I think that we need to urge our countries, our ministries of trade, we need to urge all parties to speed it up the negotiations on healthcare, which vaccines and pharmaceuticals. And in a way, this year, the Africa Continental Free Trade, I think since last year, they identified 5 key areas that they would like to really focus on. Pharmaceuticals is one of them. So I'm very happy that these are popping up, and I think that it needs to be taken more seriously. Especially, we need to look at our borders, because we say that, I remember that during the COVID time, the Secretary General, there was a kind of ease to allow vaccines and pharmaceutical products to really quickly be taken into consideration by the borders. If that system is still there, then we have to go back to the drawing table and really put our checks and guidance, especially when some of these products are moving, not because there's that clause that free movement of people and free movement of goods. No, that clause was given because of the COVID situation that was happening, so to allow drugs to facilitate across the borders with ease, with a little bit flexibility. They ought to go back to that system and really tighten up since these things are popping up.
Let me ask you quickly, what do you recognize as the main bottleneck to the very quick adoption of this all-important medical aspect of these AFTA arrangements?
If the question is for me, like I said, we need to really look at the healthcare negotiations quickly, because there is a need to develop herbal medicine. It is very key on the agenda, herbal medicine. And it is only Ghana and I think South Africa that have a tertiary institution that is really doing courses on herbal medicine. And then also our own, what do you call it, the Mampong. I met a team of people and we put together the estimate of what we are going to benefit if we look at health, if we adopt, what do you call it, plant medicine as part of what is supposed to go into the negotiations.
Is that what is holding up the negotiation, the absence of plant medicine?
No, I think that they decided not to look at it as a priority. They decided to focus on transport, tourism, and also the ones I mentioned, ICT, banking, as their priority. But I'm saying that with COVID should teach us that should be brought up, because currently they are focusing on how to look at protocol in women and youth, and then also digital trade. But beyond that, we need to tackle the 12 priority services, priority sectors under services, including healthcare and education. So that should be on the table. But however, plant medicine should be on the table so that countries will ratify it, adopt it, and then we look at the technology aspect of how to make sure that it becomes part of our traditional healthcare system.
Now, Patrick McGee is still with us. The solution that has been proposed is that Africa needs to start manufacturing its own medicines. Do we have the capacity? Are we there yet?
So thanks for that question. I don't think we're there yet, because obviously to get your own vaccines plants in place needs a lot of financing, and then you need to make sure that the demand is going to be there for the supply that is produced. So I don't think we're yet there. I think it's coming. I think it is very important to have our own medication produced on the continent. But I think what is probably at the moment more important is to get the brands and the companies that are producing medicine to give us their kind of unique identifiers. Because if you don't know, on every single packet of medicine, you have a unique identifier which tells you exactly where this medicine is from and who it's intended to. But at the moment, those brands are not yet sharing that information. And if they did share that information using our application, you would be able to know if whatever medicine is coming to any country, be it Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, or South Africa, you would be able to know if it's a real or a fake medicine. I don't know if you remember at the end of last year, end of 2022, a big drama happened in the Gambia where there was a cough syrup coming from India, which actually killed 66 to 80 young children under the age of 2 years old. And that's the question that we should be asking. How do we allow those kind of medications to come into our countries and to come into Africa unchecked and actually create the deaths of 66 children, which I find that is terrible. And we weren't able, and nothing has happened yet, to either the company that was selling those fake cough syrups with probably some really dangerous kind of products inside, and no action has been taken. And that's where I think we need as well to be focusing to make sure, because if we don't have a healthy population, the AFCFTA and the protocols that are around it will never function correctly. And we have that opportunity now as we're building this AFCFTA to design and to have product safety as a core component, which will then as well accelerate the production locally of these kind of products, especially in the manufacturing sector.
Right. Now we're joined by our very own Blizzard Soga, who's been paying rapt attention to all the events unfolding in Cape Town. Blizzard, it's good to connect with you once again. I'm sure you're having quite an eye-opening experience at this event. Let's take a step back for a moment. Tell us how things have gone on this second day of proceedings, and then we'll come back and hone in on the pharmaceutical issue again. Do we have Blizzard? Perhaps if you can unmute your microphone for us, Blizzard.
Well, Kojo, if you can hear me, apologies for that. I was just indicating earlier that a lot is going on here. Just a couple of hours ago, I was interacting with the Deputy Customs boss, who's also attending this private sector engagement. And there's a lot unfolding as far as the imports and export sector and the whole customs division is concerned. We'll bring that as the days go by. But the focus today has been on standards, which Maji has been talking about. I'm just holding in my hands now the state of the illicit economy report issued by Original. Their safety standards organization, so they are very much particular about meeting the standards. If we have to trade as the African continent, that must be done to meet the standards of the world. And very shocking details contained in that document. For instance, we're learning that the illicit economy is ranging on the average between 1.6 trillion US dollars and 2.2 trillion. That's the range. So that's how much, in terms of volumes, we're having illicit drug trade, counterfeit products flowing into Africa. And it deserves an international attention from all actors just to deal with this problem. And there are more findings contained in this very report that was issued. It goes to the heart of the point that, of course, the AFTA must not just be focused on trading, but we must trade in products that meet the standards as we need to have it. So these are some of the matters that have been coming up. Of course, you have the likes of Yamafo who are also looking at how to empower the SMEs to also get on board, because the belief is that we shouldn't be letting go of the opportunities involved in this free trade area to multinationals alone. So meeting standards, focus on small-scale businesses, and, of course, the related matters of ensuring that the trade itself is accelerated. These are matters that are on the front burner as far as the private sector summit is concerned.
Did you get a chance to pick the brain of the Deputy Customs boss on this matter?
Well, in fact, he's very alarmed about what's happening now. The issue of counterfeit products moving into our country is of concern to him. And then, for instance, we have the unique problem of our borders being porous. So some of the measures that are being taken to, for instance, check what's happening at the Elugu side and places that border to the likes of Cote d'Ivoire, where you have the influx of a lot of substandard goods and goods coming in illegally. He's been talking about some of the steps being taken to check that. Beyond that as well, he believes that we must meet standards, and that the fact that we're having a preferential trade arrangement should not mean that it should be a free-for-all where phytosanitary conditions would not be looked at. So the Ghanaian government, and by extension the Ghana Revenue Authority, says it will be paying attention to that. And if we must, of course, give preference to these products coming in the context of AFTA, standards must be on the lookout.
So did you get the impression that this was the first time he was coming across this alarming statistic, over 80% of medications on the continent being counterfeit?
Certainly not, but it's also happening because of the lack, in my estimation, of the adequate technology to deal with what's happening. For instance, you have MacG from Original just telling you a couple of minutes ago that we need increased or enhanced technology that will help us track these products, where they are coming from, and for us to know the source. Of course, if you know the source, you're able to track where the product is moving through around the world. Then you have control over the kind of product that comes into your territory. We cannot say as of now that entirely manufacturing, products such as these pharmaceutical ones in Africa alone would have solved the problem. Certainly, there will be some imports from other third countries. So you would expect that standards must be key for every participating member under this continental free trade area. And that was also featuring in the conversation I had with the chairperson of a board member actually of the BRICS economy, or the BRICS Business Council, and also the CEO for Aspirin, who happens to be Dr. Stavros, who's been talking to us about how their operations in Ghana is helping to improve standards. He's also alarmed about the fact that these are medical supplies. You don't want to toy with the public health of the country. And so government needs to take immediate steps to enhance public safety. I'm sure that in this report as well, that's been released by Original, we'll find out more. MacG is still with us, so I'm sure that he'll be able to tell us more. It's not just about drugs. There are illicit activities happening outside of the pharmaceutical industry as well, which he may provide some details on.
Why don't we do that now? Mr. MacG, you're with us. Give us a bit of a broader brush over the issues that are raised by your report.
Yes, thank you. So, as Besset was mentioning, counterfeit doesn't only happen in medication. It's actually in every...
It would appear that we're struggling with our connection to Mr. MacG. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It was, I forgot to unmute. Very sorry. So, as I was mentioning, and as Blessed mentioned, counterfeit doesn't only happen in the pharmaceutical or the medicinal sector. It's something that's across every sector that you can think of. And actually let's say the 4 other sectors that are very highly touched by counterfeit are alcohol, cigarettes, carbonated drinks, so your soft drinks, water, and then medication is the other big one. And so it's a real vast operation that is done by criminal networks, terrorism networks, who actually, it's a mean for them to finance themselves. And it's very worrying that they have such a foothold and a grip on the continent, and it's happening at a global scale. And in order to stop that, I really believe, as has been mentioned, that technology is the answer. And we have the tools are available. The products are already marked that you can really know if it's a real or a fake product. So there shouldn't be any excuse. And as I said before, again, we have this opportunity with the AFCFTA to start it right and to make sure that all our products are safely made, or authentic, or original, and that they're going to actually benefit whoever is consuming them, rather than unfortunately have some unfortunate consequences, which often happens with the death of people. And if we can't be waiting till people die to react to these to this plague that's happening on the continent. And then another thing, just to add, when we're talking about counterfeit products or illicitly traded products, these products don't get taxed. So governments are losing out on a huge revenues that they would normally be collecting from tax. They estimate, for example, that in view of counterfeit cigarettes and illicitly traded cigarettes, that South Africa is losing something like 500 billion rands a year. So it's crazy numbers, and that's the reason we know that these people are ahead of the game, and they have a lot of not only opportunities, but a lot of reasons for why they're counterfeiting all these goods. But just to give you as well other aspects of where other products that are highly counterfeited apart from medication is, like, for example, baby formula. And obviously when you think of it, when I was learning about these things, it's shocking that people are actually doing that. It's actually criminal. It's really disappointing that we actually are in this state. And again, it doesn't only happen in Africa. It's really a global issue, and that's why we've created this technology and this app to try and fight it by getting mass verification. Because if everybody is starting to verify their products, then we'll be as well able to know where are the hotspots, where are the fake medication going, and it'll give law enforcement agencies the opportunity to act immediately when there is an alert that a fake product is being used someplace or has been bought in any shop around.
Let me ask you this. I mean, if your study was able to uncover all of these counterfeit products, were you able to uncover any of the culprits? Did your research point you in any particular directions?
So the research points into a few directions. One, that counterfeit goods at the moment, a lot of them are made actually outside of the continent. We know that for medication, India seems to be one of the high manufacturers of counterfeit products. And obviously, we know that not only are these, it's a lot of criminal organizations. There's been some proof that terrorist organizations such as the Al-Qaeda's and ISIS of this world have been using counterfeit goods to finance their operations. So we know that who they are. And then often, like, there is obviously issues in terms of counterfeit goods. It brings on corruption. So they're there and they're probably paying sometimes some custom officials in order to let the goods come into the country. So it's a whole array, and it's a very complicated kind of topic, because it's a tentaculous topic that is affecting a lot of parts of our society, and a lot of people are actually involved in this plague.
I'm curious about that baby formula. Were you able to trace the origin of that?
No, so but we know it's been found in South Africa. Actually even have some friends that have had an issue with baby formula. And it's a global issue. But I think we're able, thanks to technology, to combat it and to make Africa as a whole, through the FCFTA, a safe place for us to consume our products.
I want to bring you in, Mr. Affle, because according to Mr. McGee, we're not quite there yet when it comes to manufacturing our own medication here on the continent. I wonder if you will agree, from where you sit as an after policy watcher. In Ghana, we've just launched the biggest vaccine manufacturing facility on the continent. What does that mean? I mean, first of all, do you agree that we are not there yet? And what will it take for us to get there? And how can AFTA play a role in this?
Thank you very much. I think that if we continue to sit on the on the verge of thinking that we'll never be somewhere, we'll never make a milestone. I don't totally agree that we're not there yet, because we are now in the time of knowledge transfer. We are now in the time of exporting skills. And therefore, what aspect are we not there yet? I agree with him when it comes to the vaccines, but we can do, there have been many medications that are going through systematic improvement, so we can do better. What we need to look at is that under the ASCFTA, there is a need to harmonize standards and certifications. And there is this organization in Niger that needs to be given a stronger revamp called the ASU, African, Standards Organization. They want to harmonize all standard certification, whether it has to do with pharmaceuticals or products, under one umbrella, so that whatever standard that is South Africa, the same is measured at Niger, the same is measured at Ghana and Nigeria. Secondly, the Afri-Exim Bank is building a huge quality assurance facility so that it will check product assurance and quality, so that product that could not be exported maybe outside Africa because of certain restrictions and whatever it is, standards, can go back to this facility, still under ISO standards, and then re-exported. One of the things that we have to understand is that, and I was glad that Blessing was talking about it, the ASCFTA is a referee. The ASCFTA cannot enforce. The member states are supposed to enforce what they signed on to. And I remember the last time the Secretary General complaining that his problem has to do with the fact that there is no much legislation to customs. In other words, the parties have signed to it, but when you go to their customs, there's no much legislation enforcing what they have signed on to check. We need to even modernize our borders. If you take Ghana, you go to some of our borders, you see a large land just bare. When we need to build, I was doing a paper with the United Nations on this, and we realized that, look, we need to even modernize these borders, build standards, checking, technology. If these fake products are coming from by land and they reach there, how would these customs officers even, how would they test to know what the viability of these products? There's nothing. It's only about just checking, searching them, and then you say, go. You need to modernize these borders, build facilities. If it has to do with pharmaceuticals, it has to do with defense. I quite remember Professor, this fiber optic inventor. He's building, drone satellites, which will act as manning the borders in terms of for defense purposes. We need to modernize our borders, because the first stop shop is that these people who are also involved in the fake ones are trying to evade custom procedures. Apart from that, most of them don't know much about this whole thing we are talking about. In other words, the grassroots. There's the link between corporate and then the grassroots. So, for example, my good friend Maji will be in South Africa at a corporate level. He finishes the product, it comes to the grassroots, those who are supposed to be the final sellers. They have no knowledge about standards. They have no knowledge that this thing you cannot resell when it is not really approved. They also go through a polarized or an impoverished border, and it just comes through. Then finally, the capacity building for these customs officers to be able to reject a product when they know very well that it does not meet certain standards. These are critical issues that has nothing to do with our inability to be able to push for. Finally, I heard my good friend, saying that most of the products are coming from India. The question you ask yourself is, where is the destination? if it's coming from outside Africa, the rules of origin say that the reason why we are coming under free trade is that we said that there is the need for preferential treatment among AFTA member states. Any product that is coming outside Africa should be subjected to tariffs and duties. Therefore, if the product is coming outside Africa into a free trade area and is coming into a member state, it is the responsibility of that member state to subject that product to stringent customer procedures. Most of the time, if it is under corrupt officials, then they are not going to give any, concessions at all. So it just passes through. And that is against the layer 1 of the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade. Because they said custom is cooperation. We are not an external custom yet, it's cooperation. We are cooperating. And the sad thing is that most of the countries are not cooperating when it comes to borders and custom procedures. And that is one of the reasons is really making it difficult for us to really allow this kind of revealing products and counterfeit to be passing through our borders. So yes, EFTA, in terms of a corporate and then a grassroots, there should be a real linkage so that the people will really understand what it's all about, and then also modernize our customs, and then also making sure that our standards is harmonized in Africa.
Now, Blessed, if you're with us, again, I'm interested in the appetite of the private sector. They are the ones who are leading this whole event in South Africa. What is the appetite of the private sector to be the solution to this problem? We're bringing in trillions of dollars worth of fake medication. What does the private sector want to do? First of all, to ensure that they bridge the gap, fix the problem, and also become a source of import duty and revenue to governments. Because no doubt these fake medications are not, they are not being taxed properly when they are entering the country. So yeah, what's the private sector thinking?
Well, I must state that when the Secretary General of the Continental Free Trade Area did his press briefing on Sunday, it was clear that this conference or the summit that's happening now is much more about the private sector. So this is not an optics moment for government officials to simply come around, take pictures, make the big political statements and go home. This is about the key industry players coming together to discuss their common challenges so they are able to find solutions to them. The clear posture is that, yes, the private sector is willing to participate in this Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but the bottlenecks must be eliminated. And part of the challenges, of course, will have to do with this illicit trade that we're talking about here, because obviously it could pose the issue of unfair competition to the genuine businesses that are willing to trade and to bring in their products. Also, it may engender issues of mistrust, because, for instance, if you have in the pharmaceutical sector alone heightened levels of illicit movements of goods and services, that can also bring about a lot of challenges. So it's been part of the issues that the private sector is raising, except to say that the posture is that, yes, we want to trade, but if we have to trade, give us the room to trade by removing all the hurdles and bottlenecks, and also let us meet the standards so that we ensure that once we're trading, we're all equally helping our people. So that's been the posture ever since the summit started.
Right.
Excuse me, a good friend. Yes.
Yeah.
A quick one. Patrick made a very important point that they are not cooperating. Some of the people, the private sector in the industry, are not sharing information, and that is where the business forum, the purpose of the Africa Business Forum, initially was called the Africa Business Forum, which comes under the Africa Business Council under the EU, to bring private sector people. The reason why most of them are not sharing it's because currently we now have the competition policy, which has been the protocol on competition. We were not having the competition protocol, we're not having the intellectual property protocol, and we're not having investment. These three have been adopted as of last month, but its implementation, I'm told, will take about 3 years. most of these countries don't have competition laws. They don't have competition laws. They don't have competition authorities. What is the way of our patents? How is it like? So they are not ready to even share information among themselves because one company may be more like a monopoly or whatever it is. They fear that kind of competition, but under a good competitive structure system, it shouldn't be. So we need to make sure that the competition policy which has been adopted will start seeing daylight from next year instead of 3 years. Other than that, we'll have companies outside Africa still dominating the market because they know that there is no competition law or policy South Africa has. But that country, about 90% of AFTA members, they don't have competition policy, competition laws, no authorities.
Mr. McGee, I think that brings me quite neatly to the next thing I wanted to ask you about. What are you going to do with this report and the information contained? I mean, apart from the audience at this after event, who else are you targeting with this information to ensure that some action can be taken across the continent?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So obviously who we're targeting is first any African citizen as an end consumer needs to know about the issues that are linked to counterfeit goods, and for their own safety, they need to know about it. But obviously we're targeting not only governments, but as well all the big institutions, all the development institutions, and most importantly, we want to put this in front of brands because the brands we need their help in order to fight the counterfeit, and they need to be working with us. And so basically we're targeting everybody that is active on the continent, but I would say brands, governments, and the development institutions, and obviously the consumers. Those are the main targets, and we want to go as far as possible in terms of sharing the findings that we've had on this report, which has the specific focus on Africa.
What has been the response so far from those who have had access to it?
So the response has been people are actually shocked that there's such a level of almost gangsterism in this in counterfeit goods, and I think people are getting to grips that any product that you might be consuming has the potential of being counterfeited. And that we need to be very vigilant, and especially when we were talking about medication, in terms of making sure we don't have the tragedies that happened in Gambia last year, in South Africa, in a tavern. 22 teens died from fake alcohol. And all these events, it needs to stop. And people are I think with this report, people are realizing the extent of the problem. And so at the moment, yeah, it's getting the word out there, and the feedback has been positive in terms that we're actually highlighting a real issue. So at the moment, I think we're quite pleased with the response, and it's really about raising awareness around these issues that we're facing.
Mr. Affo reminded us of a point you made about a reluctance to share information on the part of the manufacturers of these of genuine pharmaceutical products. These identifiers that they are not sharing. Help us understand. I mean, what do they stand to lose? Why do they not want these identifiers to be available to the African market?
So, and we've had conversations with around 5 of the top 10 pharmaceuticals globally. And some of their responses have actually been very, very shocking when it comes to when we ask them, why don't we share this information with the first caregivers, which would be like, let's say, the pharmacists. And their answer, and I will not name the company that said it, but their answer was like, we don't trust the pharmacists in Africa. We're afraid that they're going to copy these unique identifiers and start making fake goods. And we were very shocked by this kind of response, which was as well made in the presence of some AFCFTA officials. And with this kind of mentality, it's going to be very difficult to advance. But the main reason I would say they're reluctant to share this kind of information is probably because they're afraid that the people they share it with will reproduce these mechanisms and these identifiers to then start counterfeiting themselves, but which I don't believe is the case at all. And that's something that we've been pushing with His Excellency as well, the Secretary General, to change that perception that everybody on the continent has an interest in faking or counterfeiting goods.
One would wonder what the purpose of these identifiers is, if not to identify these drugs as genuine. And who needs to be able to identify these drugs as genuine more than those who are going to swallow them into their bodies?
Exactly.
Well, this is interesting, and I think as these events unfold, we want to keep an eye on it and keep track of how this information is disseminated across the continent and how countries can benefit. Blessed, before you all leave us, tell us what else we can look forward to in the coming days as this event continues in Cape Town.
Well, activities are beginning to round up, and all we're expecting at the end of the day is the private sector ready to push or give a push to the continental free trade area.
Blessed, it was a bit difficult to hear you there. I don't know if you have something obstructing your microphone.
Well, if you can hear me, Kojo, I was just saying that activities about winding up here in Cape Town. But the big question is the private sector ready to give a further boost or accelerate the continental free trade area? The answer is yes. The posture I see is that the private sector is indeed ready, except that the bottlenecks have to be dealt with and the standards must be met. So these are the driving factors that would have to be on the lookout for and see if indeed they will be addressed by the coordinating secretariat. And once these issues are addressed, of course, Africa will be on its way to trade in a market of over 1 billion. And that's what we're all on the lookout for.
Blessed, thank you so much for keeping us up to date, keeping us excited about what's happening in South Africa. We certainly wish you a safe trip back. And thank you very much to you, Mr. McGee and Mr. Affle, for your insightful contributions. All right, well, listen, let's take a breather, stretch your legs, but don't go far, because we're back after these. You're still watching The Pulse. We haven't squeezed all the juice out of this fruit yet, so stay with us. Inmates at the Sunyani Central Prisons are appealing to government to, as a matter of urgency, review upward the feeding fee in the country for prisoners, which currently stands at 1 cedi and 80 pesos per day. Now, they make this call during a visit to the facility by management of Gaskia FM to share with them food items and clothing as part of its Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr festivities. Correspondent Anas Sabit was there, and he came through with this report.
Joy FM's only affiliate in the Bono East region, Gaskia FM, has for the 9th consecutive year donated items amounting to thousands of Ghana cedis to Muslim inmates at the Sunyani Central Prisons. The donation forms part of the station's quest towards sharing love with the inmates during Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr festivities to help put smiles on their faces, as well as help reduce the pressure and resource limitations of the Reformation Service. Mohammed Bello Nagari is the general manager of Gaskia FM.
We've been doing this for the past 9 years, and we are not ready to stop any moment now. We are even motivated to do more, listening to what people are saying here. This is a holy month for Muslims. And then we are aware, as a lot of people said here, the inmates and the officers, they told us what they have been given is very, very small. And then as an institution, we have the role of complementing what government is giving to them. So that is why we also gather some resources from our own coffers, from the coffers of our partners, our customers and our listeners to help us come and do this aid for or the Muslim inmate, all of them, both Muslims and non-Muslims.
Receiving the items on behalf of the Ghana Prisons Service, Assistant Superintendent of Prisons Elisha Kusi Ampofo was thankful to the crew for the gesture and appealed to the general public to help support the prisons with food items to complement government's efforts.
First of all, I would say we are very grateful for this gift, and then it really means a lot to us because we have our Muslim brothers here who are also in need, which will help them and to aid them in their prayers, and even this festive season, they are fasting, and also the food too. You see, the quantity that they are taking is not that enough. So with the food support that you have also given to us, I think we are very grateful, and it will really help them a lot.
One of the inmates, after expressing gratitude to Gaskia FM, used the opportunity to express dissatisfaction with the 1 Ghana cedi 80 pesos feeding fee provided by government to inmates across Ghana's prisons. He says hunger is killing inmates here at the Sunyani Central Prisons.
I can't find words to express my gratitude, considering the current hardship in the country, and they give up the little they have to support us. I think it's a nice gesture and we are grateful. Honestly, the food, the daily 3 round meal we get, but the quantity and the quality is not good. And we can all bear to the facts that 1 cedi 80 pesos is being used to feed each of us every day. Sometimes we even wonder how they are able to manage this money because the wonders they have been performing. But hunger is killing us.
He was, however, quick to appeal to government to grant amnesty to some inmates in order to help decongest the already congested Sunyani Central prisons.
I'm appealing to the government to come to our aid. Amnesty. So as I'm talking to you, the population there is unbearable. So I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to the President, His Excellency, Akufo-Addo, to come to our aid. He should grant the amnesty for us.
Deputy Superintendent of Prisons, DSP Abdullah Ibrahim Momin, on his part, is hopeful that the aid will complement government's efforts and asks that more is needed to help sustain the prison's service.
Indeed, this is not the first time Gaskia FM, together with the Muslim community, you are donating items during the fasting period. We pray and commit, we pray that whatever effort you do or you put to get these items, may the good Lord continue to give you that strength.
The items donated included bags of rice and sugar, clothing for both men and women, assorted drinks, Muslim prayer materials, books and copies of the Holy Quran. Anas Sabit, JoyNews, Sunyani.
Now, the national president of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International, Ghana, Emmanuel Baba Mahama, has expressed confidence that Ghana hosting the international convention of the fellowship will increase the much-needed foreign exchange and promote tourism. He was speaking at a media briefing ahead of the annual international convention, which is slated for July 2023. About 2,500 Christian businessmen and women from all over the world are expected to converge here in Ghana.
The Full Gospel Men's Business Fellowship International is the world's largest Christian business organization, networking thousands of members in more than 70 nations. The organization, which has been in existence since 1952, is purely intra-denominational and was formed in Ghana in 1984 and has since established branches across the country. The International Convention, slated for July 13 to 15, 2023 in Ghana, is the 70th convention of the fellowship and the second time Africa is hosting it after Nigeria hosted in 2004. At a press briefing to raise awareness ahead of the convention, the national president of Ghana, Emmanuel Baba Mahama, said Ghana stands to gain greatly from hosting the event.
When you bring some 2,000 to 3,000 people together in one locality, then you have created an economic engine that can result in multiplier effects. First of the people that are coming, about some 1,000 and over are visitor traffic. They will pay for visa fees. They will move from the airport to their hotels. They will stay in first-class hotels for about 4 or 5 days. They will eat, they will shop, they will visit tourism sites, and this alone will create millions of dollars within the week that we are holding the convention. And beyond that, if we put up a good show, which Ghanaians are known for doing, you can be sure that we are going to attract people to come back as repeat tourists because of what they discovered about Ghana during the convention. And of course, we shouldn't forget of the fact that they are business people. Some of them have capital they can bring into this country, and they are going to network with Ghanaians and find partners they can use to push some capital to make Ghana a better place for all of us. So essentially, these are some of the economic effects we can think of when we are talking about the World Convention.
The chairman of the Convention Planning Committee, Dr. George Pra, noted that it is important Ghana positions itself well to fully benefit from the businessmen who are coming in with different business ideas.
Now, how do we address it? How prepared are we, especially here in Ghana, to face it? Well, we have the opportunity to interact with people from all over the world who are doing business. Some are in the same soup. Some have gone through it. Some are about to go through it. So the forum will bring the quality of interaction from a practical point of view. Because these are business people, they are professionals themselves. You know, sometimes we get tired of all the theories. Now let's hear from business people, tell us their experiences, let us debate our experiences, and let's forge the way forward, how to come out of this situation.
Now, the Gender Center for Empowering Development, GenCed, in collaboration with the National Empowerment for Democracy, is pushing for more women in the West African politics. Executive Director of GenCed, Esther Tewia, reveals that democratic backsliding and gender equality in the ECOWAS region have become popular, such that there's a need for a coordinated agenda among CSO networks in ECOWAS to sustain the gains. She was speaking at a forum on the role of women in stemming the tide of democratic backsliding in West Africa. There's more in this report by Jacqueline Ansoma Yeboah.
Biden has become a regular feature of contemporary global politics. In the past 4 years alone, several countries in the West Africa sub-region have experienced democratic instability in the form of either military takeovers of democratically elected governments or the altering of constitutions to perpetuate their stay in power. Executive Director for Gender Center for Empowering Development, GenCed, Esther Tewia, stated that most African countries are suffering politically because it is males that dominate the political process.
We could see in democracy, we state that countries ought to have 2-term limits. And so you see countries backsliding and changing their constitution to enable their president go through third term. You see, like I said, in countries like Burkina Faso, where the constitution is literally thrown away with a new military. You see what is happening in Mali. And for us as women, it's a concern, it's a bother.
She further revealed that policies which involves women's inclusion in the political decision processes should be made to ensure a stable and fair democracy.
We look at our political structure within the region, you see that with the exception of the women organizers, nothing much has been done in actual inclusion of women in the leadership structures of the political circle. The biggest and the largest democracy in West Africa happens to be Nigeria. Unfortunately, Nigeria cannot even boast of 10% women, both at the state level and then the federal level. So at the Federal House of Representatives, they don't have it. At the state level, they do not have it. And then at their local governance level too, they do not have it. And then you come to the second largest stable democracy in West Africa, Ghana, we also do not have it. And again, our political parties, like I said, it runs through the region. With the exception of the women organizers, the leadership of the parties are not. And inclusion is a key component of democracy. And so when inclusion is not taken seriously, you see there's a backslide.
Director for World Movement for Democracy, Ryota Junen, revealed that women in the past have championed democracy struggles and are usually sidelined when decisions are taken, which is preventing accountable governance and responsiveness.
Why should men do it, right? So I think, question should be that, okay, we know that historically, women and young people, particularly young women, have been in the forefront of democratic struggles. I've seen the women's rights movement in different parts of the world. They are the most courageous movements that I've seen in democracy.
I wish we could go on, but we're going to have to wrap this one up right here. It's been such a pleasure to bring you yet another edition of your favorite, The Pulse. We're back tomorrow with even more. Until then, stay safe.